Hey guys, DaBoki here. I want to compare two beautiful Maplestory classes, the Marksman and Bowmaster. These are probably my two favorite classes in Maplestory at the moment. They're archers, they're wonderful, and I think they feel great. So I really like both these classes, but I did say once I hit 250 with the Bowmaster, I am going to go ahead and try to compare the two and see which one I want to push to 260 first, just because I don't have a character that got too far ahead of 250, so I want to get ready for 6th job, but I want to kind of maintain my focus on one. I'm going to have two kind of major categories I want to focus on to do the comparison. One is going to be mobbing and the other is going to be bossing, and I'm going to tell you guys my pros and cons and kind of what I liked about both of these classes. First, mobbing. So you guys probably already know that marksmans are very straight shooters, very horizontal skills, and they do well with drop farming maps that have long platforms and maybe little movement just kind of falling through the map and letting their range carry them in these mobbing maps. So they are struggling in the mobbing department just a bit, but over the years, over the changes, I feel like marksmans have really improved. First of all, split shot, beautiful skill. It is up 60% of the time when you're playing marksman. It is a 5th job skill. How it works is that it empowers your main attacks, either snipe, piercing arrow, or repeating cartridge, and when you combined it with split shot, every shot that you hit a mob with, it will ricochet arrows all around it, and it looks beautiful. It's a very good looking skill, and it feels super satisfying to proc. It is one of my favorite skills, and it feels really good when it is online. It lasts for 72 seconds and it has a cooldown of 120 seconds. So a lot of people do say that when split shot is off, marksmans feel pretty bad, which they do suffer with the mobbing when split shot is off, but the mobbing has improved, like I mentioned. So the piercing shot has been changed over the years. Now it ricochets a little bit, so it does have a little vertical reach even when split shot is offline, so marksmans do have a bit more of a reach there. Also, there's an empowered arrow, which every 3rd or 4th shot when you shoot your piercing arrow, it will be a bit bigger, so you have a little bit more of a reach vertically wise with these arrows. Bowmasters have a very spherical sort of mobbing style, is what I like to say. Just a lot of arrows raining around you, so if there's mobs that show up on your screen, I feel like they have a good chance of dying, just because of how many AoE arrow proccing skills that Bowmasters have. Also, I feel like Bowmasters shine in a way where they can make big maps, or just maps that people normally don't train in, viable. So Bowmasters are very flexible in that way. And what helps with this flexibility is Arrow Blaster, which is a good skill and a bad skill. This is a really great skill to put out extra DPS, really great skill to cover parts of the map in your training areas, but just the way you proc it, I'm still not too big of a fan. I think that it's not as responsive. I'm not sure if it's my keyboard or what it is, but when I try to get the Arrow Blaster to stay in place, which you have to hold the skill down and then press your interact key, it just sometimes doesn't register, and I feel like there should be a different way to proc the stationary Arrow Blaster. Other than that, I think Bowmasters have great mobbing. Their skills are on low cooldown. Cycling through your rotation feels really good. Everything kind of syncs up. The hyper skill is very smooth for Bowmaster. The gritty gust, just throwing that into the rotation. A lot of arrows just flying around the map, so it stays true to using the bow and the arrow. Both classes, very good mobbers in my opinion. I think that Bowmasters do have a bit more flexibility and mobbing power than marksman, but marksman's mobbing still feels very good. It's just you're gonna be tied to specific maps, or you might have to put in just a little bit more effort to make some of the maps work. Now for bossing, I think this is where both of the classes do shine. Now I do think that marksmans do have a bit better damage just out of the box. Bowmasters do require a little bit more love before they can start coming online and you can notice their true power, but marksmans, they just pack a huge punch at the start, and I think that's just because they're kind of staying true to who they are. As we know, X-bows are a little bit slow attacking, but they have higher damage. As bows, they have a bit faster attack speed, but less damage. And that's just kind of like a two-handed weapon versus a one-handed weapon. You're going to sacrifice one stat for the other, but even now, in Maplestory, there's so many ways to cap your attack speed that marksmen still shoot very fast. So they're shooting fast and they're packing a huge punch. I think that that's just helping marksmen put out just a lot of big damage. The question may arise though, like, okay, what about bowmasters then? If attack speed is capped from every class across the board, Hurricane can't get any faster, how do bowmasters shine in bossing? Well, it's pretty cool that how they work bowmasters is it still feels like they're attacking super fast without raising their attack speed. It's interesting in a way because of how many arrows are proccing from the skills, from the arrow rain, the arrow blaster, all these mirage skills. You have a lot of things that are shooting so many attacks out that it just feels like there's faster attacks coming out, even though the speed is not changed. So this ties in with now the bursting phase. The burst phase is very important in a boss run. It's where you align all your big skills, you bind the boss, and you burst for a short amount of time, just as much damage as you can get out. That's kind of what a burst is a burst of damage. Bowmasters do not have a burst. They don't have an official burst. They have a continual damage burst where they proc all their attack skills, and for about 30 to 40 seconds, there's a lot of arrows raining down on your boss, and it will do damage over time. It does big damage, but it's not a burst of damage. Marksmen's have a huge burst, and it feels good. They got that repeating cartridge, they got the split shot, and you combine those together, and you can really melt some bosses. Now, what's beautiful about the Marksman's burst that's probably very unique to Marksman itself is that the repeating cartridge has 8 shots in it in a duration of 60 seconds. So that means that you can control when you use your burst after proccing it. So your burst, you have a window of a minute before you have to fire out all 8 shots. So that's very strong in boss runs because a lot of times, you know, you're getting everything prepared, the boss does something crazy, and you're not ready to burst, but you procced all your bursts. Marksmen can chill. They can wait to take the perfect shot because of how the burst is set up. Going back to bowmasters though, their continual damage burst, this is not all bad. People might be turned off a little bit that there isn't just a full-on burst phase. The thing is that bowmaster's burst comes online very fast. You can proc all your skills continuously throughout the boss fight, just doing good damage out, so you're trading off that high damage burst just for that continuous, consistent damage. Next, I wanted to talk about survivability under the bossing category, and I'm going to actually be talking about 2 skills that both these archers share. I just think that it's really good to mention it because of how good they are and just how they make the archers who they are. It is covering fire and teleport. These 2 skills I first did not like at all. I thought I would never use them. They were super clunky to me, and I was like, I'm not going to keybind them. Now they're some of my favorite skills, and I feel like they're the foundations of Bowmaster and Marksman just because of how useful they are, not only in bossing, but for in training maps as well. Both of these skills make it so that you can control the flow of the map in your boss fights. You're able to really finesse the attacks, finesse your movement, and just have more control of where you go. I know there's going to be a few of you that just don't like these skills because of just how they work, but they feel really good, and if you can master them, it's super satisfying to get a perfect covering fire off or setting up a teleport in the right spot. For survivability, I would say Marksmans do have a bit better survivability than Bowmasters just because they have a controllable iframe which lets them dodge any damage for a certain amount of time, and they have the arrow illusion skill, aka the puppet, which taunts bosses. Not all bosses, but it does taunt a few, draws the aggro towards it so that it makes bossing less stressful. And I gotta say, making any boss less stressful is a win in my book. So Marksman's got that going for them. Bowmasters do not have a controllable iframe, and they do not have a puppet skill. What Bowmasters do have is a skill called Silhouette Mirage. This summons 2 illusions next to you, and they help do more damage throughout when you're attacking, as well as they can tank up to 2 fatal blows. Now, there's 2 different types of fatal blows. There's a single attack fatal blow, and then there's a map-wide fatal blow. At least that's what I think. Maybe it's something different, but there's some attacks that you just need an iframe to dodge. And these illusions, they'll come up quite often. They will recharge every 50 seconds, so you are safe from a lot of instant death blows, but when you do need just that clutch iframe to get you out of that sticky situation, these mirages won't save you all the time. Another really strong utility that Bowmasters are equipped with are the quiver arrows. Now this is really good because there's 2 types of arrows, the magic arrows and the blood arrows. The blood arrows will lifesteal and will constantly heal you as you're shooting. So when you have blood arrows equipped, you are pretty much constantly healing. Now keep in mind, this does not affect your arrow blaster. This only affects your main attack skills. Another thing to note that's very strong is that when you pop part of your burst, the quiver barrage, what it does is it will shoot every type of arrow out. So essentially when you're bursting, you will be healing as well, which is very strong because when you're bursting, you're very vulnerable. But now Bowmasters, when they're bursting, they will be constantly healing. The last thing I wanted to talk about the bossing category, and this does apply to the mobbing category as well, is the range of each of the classes. Now, Marksman's range is just superior for Bowmasters. It always has been. There's been skills that just increases the range of the Marksman. Their class title is called the Sniper, so they are far shooters. But when I do think of archers, I think about someone who can shoot far. The Bowmaster's range is pretty limited. It feels actually very short just because of the type of attacks. So in boss fights, this does get you in trouble because you do need to be a little bit closer to the boss, where marksmans can shoot from all the way on the other side of the map pretty much, which that can get in trouble too, because when you're bossing, it's a very good idea to try to keep the boss in your screen, just a line of sight, because it's easier to dodge attacks and there's nothing that will like come at you unexpectedly. So it's a double-edged sword there, but typically you do want to put some distance between a boss and you just to kind of save yourself from touch damage or whatever other single attack damage it has if it's up close. That has been my comparison of these 2 classes, and I think both of these guys are wonderful. They both excel, and if I was going to tier list them, I would give them both S ranks. I am biased, of course, towards archers though, just in general, keep that in mind, but they just felt very good, their playstyles, and each one was bringing something different and unique to the table, which I really liked. But now it's the hard part. It's the part where I need to choose one class to push forward, because I do want to progress to 260, and essentially I will want to get both of them to 260, but I want to focus on one first, and the one class that gets the dub for me is the Bowmaster. And it just comes down to personal preference, guys. Like, I love the bow. I just love the way it looks. I love the way it feels. I've always just grown up loving archers. The crossbow, it's good, but it's just not the bow aesthetic. So it comes down to kind of the aesthetic of it, as well as just the way the skills look and the play style. I think Bowmasters just feel a little bit more nimble and quicker on their feet, and just being able to make more of the training maps flexible. And I want to see the bossing shine, because right now Marksman's bossing does shine quite a bit for me. I think they are just superior bossers because of their bursts and just how they're kitted, but I want to see what Bowmasters can do, and I want them to impress me. My Marksman is a lot more progressed than my Bowmaster, so I am just going to have to try to work extra hard to get the Bowmaster up there, but the consensus is DaBo is king. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it so much. I hope you did enjoy the video. I appreciate all the support. Like always, this has been DaBoki. Much love, one love. I'll be seeing you guys later. Goodbye.